Welcome to Redstone class. Today we're going to go over levers, buttons, and pressure plates. We're going to show the rotations of levers and buttons, and we'll show what makes wood buttons unique and how they're triggered, and then we'll show some similar things you can do with wooden pressure plates. They're even more flexible, there's more things you can do with them. So, let's start with levers. So if you're following me over here, we've got levers in every possible orientation. So you can actually rotate levers in all 4 combinations on the tops and on the bottoms, meaning that there's actually 12 different positions you can put a lever in. The reason this is significant is in old Minecraft there used to only be 2 ways of placing them, but now you can place them in 2 additional directions. And this is significant because you can now choose which way you want to be on and choose which way you want to be off. That's actually something really neat that we didn't always have in Minecraft. So there's not a lot to show you with levers. Let me show you the specifics of how they work. So a lever is usually used to power the block you attach it to. And so this block right here, this oak slab or plank, and so what this will do is it will cause this block to be a power source, which means it's going to power on the sides, above, and beneath it. So you can see how that works. So anything that's against this block is going to light up. So if I take one of these and put it right here, that's going to light up. All sides of this block will be powered because this block is what the lever is attached to. So that's the main purpose of a lever. So the other thing you can do with a lever is have it indirectly power redstone. So it can power it from being above a block as long as it's exactly against the redstone. So it may look that like there's a distance, but this 3D space is redstone dust, and then this block right here is the lever. So in 3 dimensions you have this block, and so this block is replaced with the dust, and this block is the lever. So essentially that's how it works, and you can do it on the side too. So as long as they're right up against. And one thing I want to show you is that it's not going to power up through because it's only powering the block it's attached to. And the most common use is to put it behind. And so what you're doing most often is you'll have on the opposite side of a wall some redstone dust. And so that's how you use a lever. There's not much more to be said about a lever. They're pretty straightforward. The homework for levers, I want you to go and try and make a secret switch where you have redstone hidden in your wall, and if you know where to put a lever, it can open, let's say, an iron door. I'm not going to expect you to do things with pistons or anything crazy yet, but try to make a contraption that works with a lever that you place on a wall. So that's going to be your first homework assignment. So now let's talk about buttons. And there's a little bit more to buttons than most people realize. So just like the lever, you're going to have the 12 different orientations. If you actually look at the individual pixels of the block, even though it doesn't really matter which way it faces, there are 4 orientations. So you have the 12 different directions it can face. And just like the lever, they power the block it's connected to. So there's actually 2 different kinds of buttons, and I'm not going to wait to show you the new button that came later. We're going through the first blocks added to Minecraft of Redstone. The wooden button wasn't added till much later, but we're going to go over them right now because they're basically the same thing. So there's one key difference between the two. Any button that's made out of a stone material is going to be on for 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. It's going to be on for exactly 1 second. And then the wooden buttons of any type of wood are going to be on for a second and a half. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And so the reason that counting works is because the time is actually between the gaps. So you're not actually counting 1. So you should technically go 1, 2. Go 1, 2, 3. And so each of those is a half a second. So you've got 2 half seconds and 3 half seconds. And so that's a good way to remember how long each button lasts. So that's the difference between the two. So now let's talk about wooden buttons because they're special. A wooden button actually lets you push it down by using an arrow. So that's actually a really interesting mechanic in Redstone. That makes it different so you can't do that with a stone button. See? So that actually gives it the ability to do some things that you wouldn't be able to do it. Let's talk about how you would actually push it. So you will notice that if I shoot the top half of the block here, it doesn't count because I missed the button. But if I were to shoot beneath it, it does push the button down. And why is that? Well, the wooden button is actually applied when it's on the side of a block to the bottom half of the block, so these 8 pixels downward. And so if I were to hit right here, it would light up. If I were to shoot just above like that, you can see that we got really close to the button, but we're not getting a signal. And so if a button is on the side of a block, you're going to get a behavior as if it's on the bottom half. And so anything below the line will actually cause it to light up, and anything above will not. And so I can actually test it from here. You'll see that I got really close, but because I was above, it didn't work. But if I were to hit it right below, see, that's above, right below, and you see how good Dr. Plasma is at bows in all his years, we can hit it right there at the bottom and it still lights up. And same for if we actually hit the button directly. So if you actually hit the button anywhere, including on the top half, see how I did that on purpose? Man, I'm good, tooting my own horn. So if you hit above the halfway point, it's okay if you hit the button. So obviously try and hit the button, but if you're trying to build something that needs to hit the general vicinity, you want to aim for the bottom half of the block. So the top and the bottom, I've got a diagram here. The top and the bottom will actually work if you get within, see, as long as you get within a certain, I believe it's 4 pixels. So the key is that this 1 pixel on the very outside will not work long ways. So if I hit it there, it won't. But if I hit it the next pixel in, it will. And you actually have 2 pixels that won't work on the sides where it's more narrow. And so you've got a 4 pixel radius around the button, which isn't circular. And so this green area, if this was a block, so this is a 16 by 16, if this was the top or the bottom of a block, this area will cause it to light up. This area will not. And the same thing is actually true with tridents. They're just hard to tell which pixel you hit. So if I go in here and I hit right there, you're going to see that we didn't get anything, because what we just did is we just hit this right here. We just hit that block. Sorry, we hit that block. That's what I meant to say. Because we hit it on the narrow side. And so if I were to come over here and I were to aim it right here and hit, instead of hitting that pixel, I hit that pixel right there that's diagonal to it. I missed. You'll see we do get a signal, see? And so, as expected, you hit this pixel right here, you will. And so this whole region of 4 pixels around the button is what you have to hit when it's on the top, and the same thing goes for the bottom. So if we hit on the very edge here, we're not going to get a signal, but if we are in this zone, we will get a signal if we are relatively close to the button. And so that's the hit radius. This isn't the kind of stuff you'd learn from the wiki, but that is where you need to hit for the button to hit. And there's actually a cool thing you can do with this, which is you can kind of do a rudimentary remote redstone. So if I have this set to fire a bunch of arrows and have it inverted, and I turn it off for a second by pushing a button, I can have a button that may not hit it every time, but will guarantee that it will send a redstone signal over here. And so we could cause something to receive the signal over here. I'm not going to use other blocks, but you could use comparators and repeaters and so forth. This is producing a redstone signal, and so you will get, let's say we were to do this, you're getting a redstone signal over there, and so there you go. And now you can run your redstone signal like so. And so that's actually a viable way to do it. Is it unusual? Yes, it's kind of unusual, but it is remote redstone. Remote redstone is something that's often sought after and very difficult to do. In 1.19, we're going to be able to do a lot more with that. That's much later, right? Ahead in what we're going to talk about, though. So that's it for buttons. Now let's go over to pressure plates. So pressure plates are really cool. Pressure plates, you can do even more with them than you can with the buttons. So a pressure plate has basic rules of a 1-second press and depress, which means that if no matter how gently you touch it, for exactly 1 second, which is the same time that a stone button is down, is how long they're going to be down when they're touched. And if you touch the quarter of the block, it's going to go down. So those power through underneath, just like they are attached to the block like a lever on top, or like a button on top, where this block is producing the power, and so they can also power next to themselves, but ultimately what the benefit of a pressure plate is that you just touch it by getting nearby, and it will cause the block underneath it to provide a signal, so you can have redstone underground that you walk over. So one of the things that isn't listed on the wiki is that in addition to using these clear blocks that we've talked about in other videos, they don't transmit a redstone signal, but you can place them on top. You can also place them on top of iron bars. That's not something you'll see in the wiki. And I'll show you another thing. Snowballs, rumor has it that they are not able to trigger a wooden pressure plate, but that's not actually true, because if it's on a fence post, it actually can trigger it. So that's a fun thing. So let's talk about these real quick. So if you brush them, it's not a matter of going up or down. If anything, brushes them to do it. And so it's a way to do kind of a compact version of a tripwire. We'll get to tripwires later, but it allows you to do them more compactly, where it will emit a redstone signal being closer together. And so if you need to detect mobs coming through an area, this is one way to do it. So these, again, are those blocks that we talked about. So whereas this would transmit a signal because it's a block, it's a solid opaque block. Hoppers, even though they can support them, half slabs, stairs, and glass, will not. And this is just like the way torches and dust behave. So let's get into the fun part. The fun part is wooden or pressure plates of any type. So there's something that they can do which the stone ones cannot, which is whereas the stone plates will only detect living entities, so zombies, villagers, generally players, in addition to all of that, the stone ones will detect, yes, they will detect arrows and they will detect tridents, but they'll also detect items. And so an item will also cause it to drop items. And so that's a really interesting component, because you can make something that detects items being tossed into like a chute or something. And so that's a cool thing you can do. So let's look at minecarts. What do you think minecarts do? So minecarts, in fact, will depress a wooden pressure plate where they wouldn't, and you'll get the same exact behavior with boats, where a boat will be able to push it down, or a minecart will be able to push it down, but it won't work on the stone pressure plate. And so this is something you can do. So one thing you should know is that, you remember how the buttons, it's the bottom half of the slab, or the bottom half of the block, that will cause the redstone signal? Well, on pressure plates, it's the top half. So you won't get a signal, but anything that's above this halfway line will cause it to depress. So you don't even have to hit it on the same side like you would with the button. And so that's kind of a neat thing to know, is you don't have to do it this way. You can also cause redstone to detect a projectile like that, as long as it's on the top half of the slab, or of the block. See, down here it won't affect, but anywhere above here, as long as it lands in this zone somewhere, it will work. And same thing with arrows. I could get a bow and do it just to show you, but I'm pretty sure same thing with crossbows. But as long as it's, see, right below, there you go, right there on the line. So one last thing you can do with them is they actually detect minecarts that are going diagonally. So you'll notice that whereas a minecart would brush by right here and not touch this pressure plate, this one, while we're going diagonally, we're going to run over the corner. So that's something you could use in your minecart tracks to actually detect a minecart going by. So that's a fun thing. I'm pretty sure that's it. The homework overall is going to be to, like I said, try to make a hidden redstone contraption where the redstone is hidden, and if you know where to place a lever, it'll cause it to go off. Do the same thing. Make 3 simple little contraptions with a hidden redstone, where you do one with a button, do one with a lever, and do one with a pressure plate. And if you want to keep it simple, just make them open an iron door or something, but just get some practice in with these. A stretch goal would be to try and do a target practice. So do something like this, maybe set up an obstacle course. It'd be very fun if you went and you did that with a minecart and you got a long minecart track that ran through a forest and there were a bunch of buttons to hit. And they'll stay around for about a minute or so. And so you can go around and tally up your score when you're done. That'd be a lot of fun. See if you can do that for a homework assignment. That's all we've got for today. Thanks for coming, and class is dismissed.